Hello traders and happy Sunday to you. Thanks so much for joining me on another Sunday special where I go through the markets and I talk about potential trade setups and my own analysis for the week ahead. So today we're going to take a look at some currency pairs, but I'm actually going to do it a little bit differently this week. So first of all, before we get too far into the video, let me know, do you like this new background color? Because I kind of like the soft white / gray. I think it looks better. I don't know. I also changed my candles a little bit. I'm becoming a little bit more familiar with TradingView, which is terrible because I've been using it for like 5 years. I should be well versed with it right now. I am for the most part, but I kept losing my colors and that sort of thing. And I actually just found out that you can set a theme. So I just set up Nick's theme, which is just these colors and that sort of thing. So anyways, we're going to be doing some analysis today. So thank you very much for joining me here. Before we get too far in the video, I do these every Sunday. So please make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel down below so that you can get more of this content going into the future. I'm also going to be adding anything that I really like on my watch list here so that you'll be able to see kind of what we're looking at or if there's actually anything of my interest or of interest this week. So let's start with the basics and let's talk about EURUSD. Now, if you're an avid watcher of the channel, you know EURUSD was a big winner for myself last week. We caught a lot of the upside here, moving pretty much after this breakout right here. We saw the break and we bought into the retest here for a really nice runner. Ended up closing out a profit inside of the VIP group for 3R, which is, if you're not familiar, 3 times my initial risk. So if I risked, for example, $500, I made $1,500. And so on and so forth. So that was a great trade last week. So I think we can talk a little bit about this one this week. I am going to right off the bat add this one to my watch list here, just because EURUSD has been so hot for me in the last few weeks that I don't want to. There's a couple levels that I'm interested in going into this week. So let's talk about it. First of all, we need to talk about, the last trade that we took. If you've been watching the channel, like I said, you've probably seen a lot of the talking I've been doing about it because it was such a good trade last week. And there's still a strong trending environment here. I'm actually interested in looking for the pullback after this very strong move that we've seen here. In fact, I'm going to get my fibs out and we're going to see if we can find anything of interest. Now, obviously, if price comes back to this level, I may be interested in this trade, but maybe not as much as I initially was. And the reason for that is because the trade here kind of already played out. And if we see that big pullback, it could actually be turning into something bigger. Really, the momentum here, if it's really going to stay strong, I think that there are some more shorter term levels to think about going into this week. So let's actually drop it down to the 1 hour chart for a moment. I'm going to delete this fib. Here's where things really kind of become interesting to me. Again, very trending environment. You can see the moving averages are just lined up beautifully. There's just a lot of momentum here on this pair. We started to pull back here after forming kind of a double top here and actually breaking through this level. That's where I got stopped out. That was the reason I trailed my stop up to this point, is if price broke underneath, I figured, well, we might actually have more of a pullback here. So let me just close out of this trade. So I ended up closing out that trade again for 3R last week, shared that with members, and here we are. So let's actually talk about the pullback here. Now that we're a little bit more granular, I think we can actually draw a fib from here, and there's some really interesting levels. The 38.2 is not so far away, and there is some significant levels of previous resistance, right? We paused here for a little bit. We consolidated here. Notice how candles basically turned red for a moment, consolidated back and forth before buyers tried. They failed, and then they followed through. Okay, you can see that level right there is of interest, right around that 38.2, right around, in fact, the 1.208 level. And so the 1.208 level is going to be an interesting zone for me going into this week. Whether I take a buy position or not will probably be based on, once that starts to pull back, if it does pull back to that point, what does it look like from there? Is there some sort of candlestick pattern? Is there some sort of news? What's going on in that exact time is when I actually decide, okay, this is worth taking a risk or not. But let me take it from a technical standpoint. I do like this 38.2% retracement on the fibs. I like that previous break. That breakout there after resistance there, and I like this setup here. So this 38.2, let's say, price comes down to that point. I like the idea of putting a stop. We've got structure here. This whole area was kind of a consolidation zone, so I really don't want to see price go too much underneath that, but perhaps something like this is a decent risk. What is that? 48 pips. I had someone tease me on Instagram. They told me, they're like, oh, this dude Nick probably risks 80 pips. And the reality is, yes, I actually do in many cases risk 80 pips. And if that sounds like a lot to you, then you may not recognize that I'm swing trading here. I'm not day trading. So I'm not scalping this market like this. I'm not that good. I'll just say that. I have decent entries, I think, but scalping has never been something I've been successful at, just because I think the spread and the commissions, they really make scalping incredibly challenging. Your entries have to be spot on all the time, and I'm not so much of an advocate for that. I like the bigger moves. I like to look for the 500 pip moves to the upside or downside, not trying to capture 8 pips or whatever. That's just personally my opinion. So yes, my stop losses are going to be a little bit bigger in terms of pips. Something around 50 pips is completely normal for me. In fact, I've had stops that are much bigger. So it depends the currency pair, of course. So something like this looks interesting to me, hoping for a continuation of that trend. Could be a decent play to look out for. We'll see if that comes into play. Of course, if I take any of these trades, I will be sharing them with members. Now, I do want to jump over to GBPUSD because someone was telling me that, I had an eye on GBPUSD last week, but I really liked the level that someone mentioned at the end of the week, which was basically just a pullback to this previous resistance. We are much the same on EURUSD as we are in pound dollar, as we are in a strong bullish market, as people start to continue being bearish on that US dollar and bullish on that counter currency, right? Euro versus the dollar, pound versus the dollar. People are very bullish on these pairs right now, and there's a lot of momentum. So we are at an interesting level here. I think there's probably some decent risk to reward just by, this area alone, right around this 134.28. So I'm going to add this to my watch list to watch on the open. When I say watch it on the open, there might be gaps when the market's open. There might be things to think about there. Something like a similar trade setup where you have a pretty defined level of support. If that breaks by a lot, I'm probably not interested in staying in that trade. You can see in this case, this would be more of like a 34 pip stop loss, and then looking for, a move back to the highs and trying to trail stops as I usually do. Those sort of setups could be something to look at. Now, there is one more level I like here, a little bit bigger picture. In fact, let's bring it to the 4-hour chart. In fact, I might like this trade better. I might like the idea of letting this pull back a little bit more and extending this zone out a little bit less specific. You can see in this case, maybe not buying the top of that zone. I like the idea of buying this top, this area right here. So being a little bit more patient with that entry. If price were to pull back further, I like this setup even better. I like the idea of expanding that stop out to about 50 pips again and looking for that continuation. I personally am a bigger fan of this trade because we did get the breakout. We saw some continuation there. Now we're seeing a pullback. I want to, eliminate or possibly reduce the chance that this is just, consolidation and not just going to tag me out of my stop before going lower or going higher, right? I'd rather just wait for a little bit more of a steeper pullback to try and get a little bit more value on the entry. If it wants to enter, great. If it doesn't, then no big deal. Look for something else. Is there anything on the gold market? Let's take a look at XAUUSD, and I'm going to see if there's anything of big interest here. So I'm actually going to have to start on the daily chart. So I am bullish on the daily chart. If you guys saw my video last week on gold, there's really not a whole lot here. Some people might make the case for looking for a sell this week on gold, but I'm not going to be a big fan of that just because we are still above that 200-day moving average. So I'm not going to add this to my watch list. This is not something that I have any sort of pressing interest in trading. So yeah, that's just what it is. I'd be looking more for a breakout of this. And it doesn't look like we're anywhere near that right now. If that happens, then yes, I would probably add this to my watch list. But for now, not too much of an interest there. Let's see if dollar yen has anything to check out here. I really haven't liked trading dollar yen a lot of 2020. It's been so choppy. So I'm just going to pass that one as well. Dollar Canadian, anything? Dollar Canadian, yes, I want to short this thing, but not at the lows here. I love the idea of price pulling back and giving a little bit more of a interesting entry. So we do have this this downtrend. We have, you know, the long-term momentum very, very strong to the downside here, right? You could draw in a long-term trend line if you want. You know, we had this, we had this, right? Really just lots of different variations of strong downtrends in recent times. So, but the big thing here is that we broke through this level of support, and any sort of retest on this is a sell in my book. So looking for something like this and looking for a pullback entry. So this is basically only if we see some bullishness starting out in the week would I be interested in this. Because if it just keeps going, I'm not going to chase this thing. But if we do get some sort of pullback here, then very much interested. So I am going to see, I'm going to add this to my watch list, USD CAD, to see what's going on here in terms of this week. So if we do start to see a bullish move on the US dollar, which I will be watching for, then I will come back to this chart and see if there's any interest. Let's see what else we can get into. Let's take. I did want to take a look at silver because I actually had an interesting idea about silver, but it looks like it already happened. I was looking to buy this zone, but I never did. So really nothing too much there. There is some bearish trend lines here to watch out for, but that's not necessarily something of interest to me to be buying right now or selling. I'm not interested in selling above this 200-day moving average. Lots of strength there for silver. Actually, I am going to add this to my watch list because there's one setup I want to see if I can take advantage of. That would be a break above this level and looking for some sort of retest this week. So that is in favor of the long-term momentum. We've got a downtrend. We're looking for a break above that downtrend to look for the long-term trend to continue. So I like that setup. In that case, probably be looking for, whoops, I don't want that. Let's do long position. Probably be looking for a return to the high. Definitely looking at this support zone as my barrier. So something like this. Now in this case, you can see my stop loss is much bigger, but I'm looking for, you know, a pretty good move to the upside. Now this is something that could take, you know, a month for that trade to play out if it goes in my favor. So different swing trades for different people for sure, because some of these trades are going to be like a few days. Some of these are going to be a few weeks. Some of these are going to be a few hours even, maybe. You know, you never know. Generally speaking, my trades are like this. The longer trades usually equals more gains because my winners keep running. The shorter trades are usually just small losses. So that's how it usually breaks down. Because let's say I enter this trade and it just goes, oh, out. That's going to be a pretty quick loss. But let's say that I end up taking a trade and I'm shooting for, you know, some sort of longer term high. This might take, you know, some time. But eventually I'm hoping for that trend to continue to the point where it makes money. So that is definitely something to think about as well. Is there anything else I want to watch? I did want to see if New Zealand yen, I had my eye on this pair. Yeah, I like this pair for a retest this week. Two different zones actually. And really there's two trades that I like here actually. Yeah, I think I like both of these trades. I like the idea of a pullback to here and a pullback to here. And those are going to be two different time frames. So if this trade comes into play, I do like the idea of looking for the continuation on the, that's probably going to be the 4-hour chart. We can see here. You know, if price comes down a little bit more, looking for a bounce off of that level and continuation of that trend, I like that. But I also like the idea if that fails, which again, just because I say something might work out, or a trade that I like is there, does not necessarily mean it's always going to work out. But I like the idea of trying for a buy here, stopping out if that doesn't work, and if price continues lower, trying to buy into that longer term zone of support. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic, you know, two different trade setups on the same chart. The reason I like this one is it's a little bit longer term. So if you're a longer term trader, then that might be of interest to you. If you're a shorter term trader, that might not be of any interest to you, is this idea here looking for pullbacks to that 71.5 roughly and looking for the long-term bullish trend to continue here. So that might be something to look out for going into this week. So I am going to add a New Zealand yen. And I think that's all I'm going to do for today, guys. So any trades that I end up taking, like I mentioned, I share inside of the A1 Trading community. It is a service that myself and my staff put together for you guys. We spend a lot of time, and there's literally like full-time people working to make that the best group for traders. So if you have any interest in supporting the channel or joining us to trade with us, you can join us there. There is a link in the description for a promo code as well for you to get some sort of discount for supporting the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of the Sunday Special. I hope you have a great week and happy trading.